The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the VTIC webinar series. I think we're up to number 7 in this series for the year. So thank you for regulars who are listening in. We have a great situation today where we have a case study, a live case study. We're thrilled to welcome Josie and John from Port Campbell Touring Company. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming to Melbourne. And Carol Williams, who heads up the internship program at the Chamber of Commerce, talking about a benefit to VTIC members today in terms of the internship program. Yes. Thank you, Carol, for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, you guys, we will have some questions peppered through. But I'll throw to you, Carol. Thank you.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this webinar opportunity. I'm part of the internship team, so Sheree Easman is the program manager and I assist her with the program. I guess we can talk about a number of things. So one is that I guess how the program came about, the benefits of the program, how you can bring on an intern, how to access the member-only benefit of $3,000, and talk about our student experience and our member experience with Josie and John. I guess to start with, we can look at the well. The second part will be to look at the key benefits and the participation in the program. To begin with, how the program came about. The Victorian Chamber worked with the state government as part of this the Higher Education Task Force. We have we've seen this screen. Oops, sorry. Sorry, I've skipped through a bit.
Stress. Here we are. Yes, we're on track.
Okay, so we wanted to be able to support our members to give students opportunities within business. So students who are at university often don't get exposure to business and often don't get that opportunity. We also wanted to help our members so that they could take advantage of the skills that students have before they graduate. So it works for both members and works for students, so everybody gets an opportunity to access this program. Okay, so the benefits to you. Can we just go to the next one? Benefits to members. Okay. So you'll have access to student capability that can assist in delivering tangible benefits to your business. And this is what happened with Josie and John. They were able to access a fantastic student to support them, and they'll be keen to talk to you about that. You'll receive financial assistance of $3,000 to support you in taking on an intern. So we source candidates for you. You write us a project proposal, we source candidates for you, and then provide you with a $3,000 financial assistance at the end of the internship. So the business has access to skills to meet the challenges in the years ahead. There's often examples of students who have come onto the program within social media, within marketing, within engineering, depending on what the member needs. But it's a fabulous program that gives students and members great opportunities. On the next slide, you will see, this is feedback from our surveys, post-internships. You'll see that everybody has said, most members have said that yes, the internship has met or exceeded their expectations, and the responses up there, future employment opportunities, opportunities to learn. So the opportunities to learn for both members and the student are phenomenal, and that's basically, we don't have very many negative comments. It's all very positive. So
what I like about that one, Carol, I think it's a strong technical skill. So obviously businesses are sourcing students to plug a gap, perhaps, where they didn't have internal resource in a certain area.
For sure.
I'm bringing in a young person to fill that spot, which is terrific.
Yeah, for sure. So examples of that might be where you're a company that doesn't have a social media presence. That seems to be the big one at the moment. And so learning those skills, or bringing in a student who has those skills, who can write you up a social media plan, and then you can work from there. That's an excellent one. So our next slide. This is part 3, so just about how to bring on an intern. So if we go to the next one. So as you'll see, written up there, the details of how you go through this process. Now, Cherie and I help you through this process. We send you a template. We talk you through how it all works. You write up the template. You complete what it is you're looking for. And I'm sure John and Josie will attest later to the fact that writing up your proposal accurately and writing it well, putting the time in, makes a big difference to the quality of the intern you get and the success of your particular internship. So we provide you with examples as well of how you can, what sort of an intern you can take on. We provide you with examples of types of internships. We then, once you've written up your proposal, we send your proposal off to the universities. Now, we might send it to one university depending on where you're located. If you're down in Ocean Grove or down on the beach, we would probably send to Deakin because they have great access to students down there. So we target the universities, which seems to work very well.
Is there a certain group of universities we engage?
Yeah,
This
so
project engages?
it's all of the main 9 universities within Victoria, and they're listed on the website, but they're the ones that you would pick on.
Okay, so it's nice and broad in terms of access.
Yes.
And being able to get students who need students.
Yes, and we've been able to work out the best universities for certain students. So if you're looking for in a particular field, you know which ones to go to. What else can I tell you about this? So we send them off to the universities. Within 2 weeks, the universities will send us 3 or 4 candidates for you to consider. You'll then go through the interview process because it's important that the student fits with your culture, your workplace culture. So we'll get you to do the interviews, you select your student, and then we send you a contract. So we set up a contract which is between us and you, and then you have your own arrangement with yourself and the student. But that agreement that we get you to complete allows us to pay you $3,000 on completion. So basically you can make that work for you, make sure that the student, timing-wise, we ask you to put in a specific time, but if you need to be flexible, you can be flexible, that's absolutely fine.
Carol, I just had a question come here. We might interject with questions as we go through if they're particularly relevant, but George has come through and said, how many interns or potential interns would you interview? For example, is it 5 or just a couple?
If we send you 4 and you like the look of all 4, go ahead and interview them. But if there's only 1, that's fine. If there's one that you prefer, you go ahead and interview that person, and then we notify the university that the others won't be proceeding. So we do that side of it as well for you. Okay. I haven't mentioned how many interns you can have per year. So you can take on 3 per year, but we recommend that you take on 1 at a time just to get the hang of things and make sure you understand the process. So, what's the next? So this is the template. This is the employer project template, which is very hard to read on my screen. So I assume it's hard for you to read too.
We might put this up on our website.
We will.
Afterwards so people can find it.
We will. And the link as well. We'll have the link at the end of this too, so that you can access that. So all of the forms, all of the information is on the website. And of course, you can always contact us if you have questions. We might move on from this slide because it doesn't look very good. And on to the next one is, okay, so as I said, this is covering what I've talked about before. Our universities take 2 weeks to post the role, attract the student interest, and then undertake preliminary screening. So that's the other thing I should mention. The university does all the shortlisting. So you will get a list of candidates who are suitable for your role and who have been either interviewed by phone or interviewed in person. We tend not to we don't deal with students directly. The university does all of that for us, and then it's up to you to work out who is the right person for the job. So you would make contact with that student, organise an interview, organise a phone call, whatever works for you. That side of the process is totally up to you. Yeah. So on to the next.
A couple of questions coming through.
Sure.
Actually, people are asking the same question, so I presume you're going to get to this, Carol. But they're saying, how long should an internship go for? And Kevin has posted that in, and Paul Holland has the same question in mind. Yeah.
Okay, so our internships are for 120 hours. And so we recommend that when you're preparing your project, that you make sure that you're perhaps not thinking too big, that you can fit that project into the 120 hours. That's manageable for the student and it's manageable for you. So 120 hours, and that entitles you to $3,000.
Okay, and that can be flexible in terms of how the business operates.
Absolutely.
With a certain project.
Typically, we would say 6 to 8 weeks, but depending on the project, we can be flexible around that. So we can adapt that to suit members.
Right. Gosh, we have so many questions coming through. I'm going to let you keep going for a little bit, but when things are relevant, I'm going to interject.
Okay, no problems. So up here on the screen, we have who are our university partners. So we have a list of those partners who are, I'll just go through them. So it's Australian Catholic Uni, Deakin Uni, Federation Uni, Swinburne, La Trobe, Monash, RMIT, University of Melbourne and Victoria Uni. So they're all of the main universities within Victoria who are all of our partners, so the Victorian Chamber of Commerce members and partners. So that is why we use that particular group of universities. Our next slide shows Victoria and the various parts of Victoria. I guess the main thing I want to talk about with this is that we have placed students across right throughout Victoria. We've had students at Sovereign Hill, a number of students at Sovereign Hill, which has been very interesting. And I think there was an article in a recent BE magazine about the internships there. We've had curatorial students and marketing students at Sovereign Hill. They're a big supporter of the program and they find it's a great way to give students opportunities as well as getting some interesting work done. We're working with Business Wodonga at the moment and La Trobe University to source students for Business Wodonga project about increasing activity in that area. So that's a really interesting project. And we're currently recruiting in Ballarat, Bendigo and Horsham at the moment, so trying to find students for roles in those areas. So we can certainly support if you're out there and you're regional, we can certainly help you.
Janine, I hope that answers your question. She said, we're a distance away from universities, are there remote opportunities? And it sounds like yes.
Yes, there definitely is, Janine.
Resourceful in how we think about
it. And maybe a little bit patient sometimes. So we might have to work towards looking at the university breaks to fill a role in the regional area, which seems to work quite well. And again, our next slide is the placement agreement. You might just skip over that. That is all on the website. You'll be able to see that there, and I will send you the placement agreement so you can have a read through it. But that's basically just the agreement between us and you to ensure you get paid that $3,000. So how to access the member-only benefit of $3,000. Basically, on completion of the internship, we get you to complete a form. We make sure that we deposit that money back into your account within 30 days. So well before that. The $3,000 is to support the cost of having your intern. It won't fully cover the cost of having an intern, typically, because you'll need to allow for superannuation and some on costs. Generally, it tends to work out to be around the $200 mark that members are out of pocket.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So
depending on the internship and depending on the award rate. But generally, it's around the $200 mark. So you do need to factor that into your budget. So as far as the student goes, I guess I should mention that we don't just leave you with the student once you sign that contract. We do check in on the student along the way and make sure that everything's working for you, make sure that the student's happy and that things are working out. So we do check in with you and make sure that the process is all going well. So our next slide, we're over to John and Josie to talk about their fabulous case study.
Welcome, guys. Thanks so much for being part of this.
Oh,
Terrific
no
to have
problem.
you. And you've travelled all the way from Port Campbell to be with us today. So
Oh,
I appreciate you
yes.
coming in. do you want to tell us a bit about the intern you had, Hugh, and the project you had for Hugh?
Yeah, we we decided that for the motel we wanted to collect specific data about the visitation to Port Campbell that would help the motel and businesses in Port Campbell, just so that we could actually identify who the demographics were and so on. So for me to personally go off and do that, which I was so tempted to do, meant that we were only a very small business. It would have meant to take me out of the business. We couldn't support doing that, and also because we had to ask other businesses to contribute, you know, getting a motel to ask another motel to give what could be quite specific data that they might, you know, not want to give each motel. We just found that we needed somebody who was, I suppose, independent in a sense, but the data that we were going to get was going to support us and also everybody else. So I happened to find out about the internship program, and to be honest, we actually approached a university ourselves because we had a bit of a relationship, and we specifically wanted. I'm just having a look. My position title that I had was a tourism business analyst,
Yes.
marketing research. And so we actually spoke to Monash University that had the Sustainable Tourism, Masters of Sustainable Tourism course. And one of the lecturers there actually identified a candidate for us, and worked out, you know, perfectly. I've lost track of where I am now. So what ended up happening was we employed Hugh, and we were a little bit more flexible in that we allowed it to be in the time that university had finished. So university finished around November. So between November and March, before university went back, was when he worked for us. The 120 hours, we could easily have done a hell of a lot more. But we were a bit more flexible in that we actually had Hugh come to work in 1 week blocks over that 4-month period, so or whatever it was.
Yeah, and yours is an example of that. How
Yeah.
to be flexible to make it work.
Yeah. And there, you know, when I was just watching your slides now, there were things like because of our, I don't like to call our remoteness, but because of where we were, and Hugh was from Monash University and lived in Melbourne, despite he had come from the area before. We had to look at other costs like his accommodation and so on. Like one of the things that we stipulated in this was that they had to have their own vehicle and a license, because there's no public transport that's accessible, you know, to getting around. And so we actually said that was a necessity for the job. But we provided accommodation. We were prepared to take on that cost. So there are a couple of other costs that you've got to consider. But we didn't see that as being a massive cost, I suppose. But yeah, the $3,000, we could easily have spent more, but we tried to keep it within that. And also just so that the program was done in a specific time, in the time that we said we would.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we could have easily have employed him for a lot longer.
Yeah.
And I guess this, Josie, speaks to being quite clear and
Yes.
defining your project from the outset, what you're engaging the intern for and what you need them to actually complete, and trying to rein it in where possible and stick to that.
Well, we knew because of the way we wanted to collect the data and getting other motels on board and so on, we knew that to collect that data, it had to be over a period of time. So we made it quite clear at the start in our proposal that this was going to go from November through till February, and turning out to be March in the end. But we were quite specific in that, and we did say it was going to be like, you know, 1 week blocks, that we were prepared to talk to the candidate about when it suited them. So, but also it had to be that they knew that they had to have that continuity over that time as well.
Yeah.
You couldn't just have it that you came 1 week in November and then another week in March and that was it. So yeah, it worked out really well for us.
One of the benefits for us having Hugh was that he had certain skills that we obviously didn't, because he's doing a master's level tourism. The other one was that he had a certain independence from us as well too. So they were the two big factors for us, which got this moving on. But on the other side of things, from Hugh's point of view, I think working on ground in a small community, I think he got a better appreciation of the local issues as opposed to sort of what normally comes out in the broader context of things. So I think it was a very strong learning process for him as well too, and I think he really enjoyed that part of it as well.
Yes.
And I think that's the benefit of being on site, the benefit of being
definitely.
connected to you two and working with you two to make sure that he achieved what he wanted to achieve, and his experience to improve his experience.
And we probably, both he and I, because we worked quite closely together, we kind of treated each other as equals. You know, it wasn't like I was the boss and he was the employee. Well, despite the fact that that is what it is, but I actually found that he often used to come to me, like if he'd have an issue with a particular personality of somebody, and he'd come to me and ask me, well, how do I go about going, through this? And I would talk through with him. And then also when it came to actually collecting data and the best way to set it all up, he would come to me with suggestions. So we worked very closely together. In between checking people into the motel. Occasionally, I think poor Hugh actually even checked somebody in one time for me. It just sort of sometimes happened, but
that's great learning for a student too.
well, it was, and
reality.
and I think being on the ground and actually, what I think too was the fact that as part of our proposal, he had to present a report, had to put a report together. So to make sure that what he was collecting and what he was able to put into the report, it had to work, it was great. I think he got a huge amount out of it. In fact, he has said that he has.
Yeah.
And since then, he's actually picked up a position. So he's now finished. He finished in June, and even prior to finishing his degree or his master's, he actually picked up a position. I think it's with the Caravan Industry Association, and doing very much similar work, collecting data for them and presenting that.
Just to let everyone know, Hugh had planned to be here today, but was unfortunately unable to come because he was working on this other project and had to do a radio interview. So we can see that that's been a huge benefit for him, as well as being a great benefit for Josie and John.
Could we backtrack and just talk through the project a little more, because yours is quite a unique situation, I guess. You had a longer term plan for you than most businesses will have. They'll probably try and do their 120 hours in a month or two, Carol?
Yes,
8
weeks, yeah.
But your project's quite unique. Do you want to take us through the process of bringing Hugh on board in a little bit more detail, maybe briefing him initially at the beginning, and how he worked with you guys, and perhaps as well engaging with the broader community, because it sounds like you did a lot of work with other businesses in the area as well. It wasn't just you.
No, well, Port Campbell's quite a small township.
Yeah.
We only have a population of
And 550
permanent residents.
But
But
up to 2,000
there was
3,000
about,
per night over the
yeah,
summer
there's
period.
about 15, I'll call it accommodation, what I call prescribed accommodation. So that's like motels, villas, different things.
Yeah.
And he was responsible to go and approach all of them and find out how many he could get on board. Well, of the 15, he got 11 on board. So he did, an extremely good job.
I think we said he cajoled.
He did. He did a better job of cajoling than.
But I think being independent from us and most operators, we gave them an overview of what we were trying to achieve, and from a town perspective, not from our business point of view. It was from a town perspective.
Yeah.
So Hugh was able to then go in and sweet talk them, and it worked quite well. In some cases, it wasn't perfect. The data was coming through from them wasn't exactly perfect, but overall, it gave a very good snapshot of what was happening in the town over that period of time.
We talk about the process. I have to be honest, I personally think that with the position overview and the position details that we put in, that made it very clear. That became part of the brief of his job. So we like, I won't go through.
Talk about that. We'll talk about what it was, what the project was.
Okay, so we wanted to collect. Shall I read out my position overview? To collect and analyse data related to numbers and demographics of overnight visitors to Port Campbell, in particular Portside Motel. All this data information would be used to help inform Portside Motel and Port Campbell Touring Company of where and how to market the business, and also help inform how to identify and improve product and market portside motel and features of Port Campbell to both domestic and international market. Also, this will be a benefit for the entire local tourism industry by establishing a framework for capturing vital local level tourism sector data, which is hoped will be continued to be collected. That sounds
So one
pretty...
thing we should put in, that all the businesses that were involved with the project, they all got a copy of the report at the end, which is very important, that they contributed so they could see. They had their own data, but they could see how they were sitting in terms of the entire town.
Yeah.
And let's be realistic, most businesses knew approximately how many domestic, how many internationals that were coming through.
Right.
And I think most people had approximately the same amount of
Anecdotally, we knew we needed something hard evidence. Yeah. And the beauty of it was that because Hugh was doing the Masters of Tourism Sustainability course, they had been doing that sort of work on a broader scale across part of the Great Ocean Road. And they actually, as part of the course, they actually came down to Port Campbell to actually see it for itself. So John and I actually spoke to 90 of the students on their field trip. And that was actually when I first met Hugh, even though we'd already sort of identified that he was the candidate. And that was the first day I got to meet him. And that was, and the fact that he had an understanding already and as part of his course. So that, you know, he was pretty excited about coming on board, and it was quite easy. Like, he obviously read this and what my position details were, etc., and he knew that he could do the job. Like, he was quite confident. And I remember him saying to me that night, there's some great programs that we've been looking at through the course, which I can use in this. And it was interesting because your slide that you had up that shows the feedback of, you know, the bubble, he was saying, I've got that program, you know, like, he didn't say it specifically, but he said, I've got this program that will show it. And that's what he's done. In our report, he's actually put down, because one of the other things we asked him to do was also to get some feedback from guests that are staying in Port Campbell, because we wanted to know, you know, what were the reasons why they were staying in Port Campbell, because nobody else could tell us. And so I'll call it a satisfaction survey. So Hugh actually designed a satisfaction survey along with me, because I did say to him, this is the sort of information I'd like to know. And he actually said, well, this is the information I'd like to know. So we put it together and we actually sent off the link on a post-stay email that we sent that all the guests that stayed at the motel, and he's still getting responses now. And he was able to put together a really good analysis of why people stay, where they spend their money, how long they stay for, where they've come from. You know, like the night before, have they stayed on the Great Ocean Road or have they come straight from Melbourne, that sort of thing. So we've had, you know, an incredible amount of data and information now that we can easily use, and the township, you know, the tourism industry in Port Campbell can use.
And that's an important point, that what we were after is a satisfaction survey for people staying within our town, because we get satisfaction surveys all along the Great Ocean Road, and we get satisfaction surveys at the 12 Apostles. But sometimes that doesn't relate to what's actually happening with overnight visitors staying in our town. And this is what the project was about. It was about the township of Port Campbell, not the Great Ocean Road or the 12 Apostles. So it was very specific, and it was micro.
I guess for people who are online listening to the webinar, this is an example of something that was obviously important to the two of you that you needed to do, but that you just didn't have the time.
We couldn't have.
Perhaps the knowledge in some instances.
Definitely.
So it's often, internships are a great way to get rid of those things that are on the back burner, that you think we really need to do this, but we just don't have the time. The time
and the skill, you know, because Hugh had certain, as I said, certain programs, not just that alone, but certain programs. He actually set up the data collection on how to, and he tried to make it as simple as possible. He actually created he and I created a spreadsheet that people could actually use in the motel to collect the data. And then all they had to do was once a week, he had a very simple way of inputting that data online, so it went direct to him. Now, you know, I would have liked to have tried that, but it would have been a year down the track. Like I would have had to have spent so much time, you know, within a week, within 3 days of working with me, he had that up and running and off to motels and briefing them and training them on how to use it. And I was thinking, how could I have done that myself, much as I would have loved to. But so, yeah, that was excellent. That was the skills that he brought in. And what was great was there were skills he learnt at uni.
Yes.
He applied on the ground. He saw the success of it, and obviously was confident enough that, you know, he found work doing the same thing, but paid, you know, well, not that he wasn't paid with me, but, you know, full-time work, employment once he's finished. So, yeah, it was excellent.
For his resume.
Yes, yeah.
It's an opportunity for him to have a real example to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
And very encouraging, I guess, as well for the industry to know that there are young people out there who may or may not be studying something in tourism, but can bring skills from all different aspects of the university degree into it.
Yep.
And for us to see what that can yield, I guess, in terms of for your business, but also the region.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really great case study that tourism businesses can look at and say, look, this has been great benefit to the region and the township as well as our business independently. So another framework to look at for something like this.
Well, Hugh was apparently yesterday was briefing the local council on the report and the findings, and so yeah, we're pretty pleased about that because and to be honest, that was part of our brief. We did say that, you know, present findings and data to local councils and other tourism bodies if it's possible, you know, but that was more we introduced him to a local councillor and he gave him a brief just towards the end of the program of the internship, and as people may be aware, all sorts of things happened down our way with fires, etc., and things like that. So it sort of got put back until now, August, which is you know, it's a bit of a pity that it took so long. But yeah, he's doing that at the moment. Yeah.
But as I mentioned earlier, one of the benefits for Hugh as well too was that he was able to experience working on ground.
Yes.
And he had the technical skills and he knew the broad concepts. But by working on ground, he had the opportunity to just look at things a little bit differently on ground than maybe what he would have looked at beforehand. I think that was a great benefit to Hugh. I hope he doesn't mind me saying this. But, you know, we had quite a few discussions out there.
Oh, yeah.
In the backyard about, you know, this and that, and, you know, comparing statistical data from here, but, you know, is that relevant to us here, or, you know, what's happening there? So I think he really got a good insight into what actually happens on ground in that situation, which obviously is helping with further employment.
Yes.
I just want to bring up the fact that Cherie and Carol were so supportive in all this. I just found the whole process so much. I was a bit nervous at first because I must admit, when you sent me the proposal that I had to fill in, I just went, oh God, how am I going to do this?
Paperwork, yes.
The paperwork, but the examples that were sent really helped me out. And, you know, as I said, I was fairly obvious, you know, I knew what I wanted. I just wasn't quite sure how to put it down initially. So I remember sending, like, once I filled it out, I did send it off to the lecturer that we knew at Monash to get him to have a look at, which he contributed a few things. And I remember sending it off to Cherie and saying, is this right? Is this how it's meant to look? So there was never, you know, left on my own. I actually felt there was great support. I often, you know, sometimes I'd ring, sometimes I'd email. And it's funny, the questions that people have been asking, I was asking the exact same things. How do I get this $3,000? You know, what do I have to do? You know, all these things that people are asking, I asked the same things, and there was never once that I was never answered. I felt supported all the way through. And I remember Cherie ringing to find out, or emailing to find out how Hugh was going, and I just remember my email. I was so uplifting because I'm going, yes, fantastic, it's great, it's working. And
Josie, we were happy too.
Yeah. But I do remember, like, it, you know, in that whole time, I never felt that because I did explain to Cherie also, and I think it might have been you, Carol, too, that at the start, you know, we can't do the 6 weeks on straight because it's not going to suit our particular need. And there was never this, oh, well, you can't do that. It was, okay, that's fine, you know, we work it out. And I did specify in our proposal that it was going to be for that 4 months or whatever it was. So it was set right from the start. Yeah. So yeah, I just want to say it was. I actually had. What was the membership we had? The In the Loop membership.
Oh, yeah.
And when I spoke to Victorian Chamber of Commerce, that we realised that we had to up our membership, and it was the best money spent. So we did. Yeah, it was great.
We have lots of questions that have come through.
Good.
They probably speak to the more practical side of the internship program, but it'd be great to have your input as well, John, where it fits. So a couple of questions have come through around the expectation of ongoing work after the internship program is finished. Okay. Is there any expectation, I guess?
No expectation of ongoing work. It's an internship for 120 hours. However, if you did want to source an intern as a test run, for ongoing employment, it's a great way to do it. Certainly coming towards the end of this year, if you're looking to maybe take on a graduate next year, now is a good time to source an intern to do that test run through an internship program and then work that out. But there's certainly no expectation. Students don't come with an expectation of ongoing work.
Gosh, that's a good way to look at it. I hadn't thought about that. If you're looking for a graduate, start, give them a trial run and see how they go. In your business, see if they're a cultural fit, see if they understand what you're up to. That's great. Somebody, let me have a look. Michelle has asked, can you use less than 120 hours?
You can, Michelle. You can use less than 120 hours, but you would be paid a pro rata amount of the $3,000.
Okay. And I imagine that might be for a more bespoke project, something a little bit more niche perhaps, that Michelle needs to get across the line. Have we had examples of this come through?
We've had a project that finished after 110 hours.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that's fine. We can't think what the project actually was, but I think possibly the student was they've just got through the project more quickly than expected. I would recommend using the whole 120 hours so that you get the $3,000 benefit.
Yeah. And I guess on the flip side of that, if you have something that's going to take more than 120 hours, how would that work? Is that then a paid?
Yeah, so it's a separate arrangement. So you would complete the 120 hours and then anything outside of that would be at your own expense. So you would set up your own arrangement there.
Beautiful. So many questions coming through. Speaks to your point at the beginning, Carol. Can we engage multiple interns for the same role? And if so, how do we go about that?
Okay, so multiple interns for the same role.
So say in Josie and John's case, if they had a lot of data to collect, could they have had 2 interns working on the same project collaboratively? Okay. Say you had 40 motels in Port Campbell instead of your 15. Could you have?
We generally recommend that members take on 1 student as a starting point, just so that you're clear on the process, so that you're comfortable with the amount of supervision you have to provide to the student, because you do need to give them support and supervision. However, we have had people who have taken on 2 students in, say, 2 IT help desk roles because they've got a particular project going on. And if it's exactly the same role at the same time and the one person can give supervision to the same role, that would work too. But as Josie said, when she was putting together her project, we were able to talk through a lot of those details along the way, and we can certainly help any members who are interested in looking at that.
I think there's a common theme coming through here, and it's flexibility, isn't it? We will work with you.
We will work with you
the best we can.
Yes, and we want to make sure that it's a good experience for the student and a good experience for the member.
Absolutely. We have a couple of questions coming through here around the ideal age or year level at university for these students. So we know that Hugh was master's level.
Yeah, and he was in his last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he'd be in his early 20s, I'd say.
He was the same age as our son. Yeah, he was 27.
Okay.
Yeah, he was an older. He was a mature age as well. He'd worked and then came back. It was interesting. I personally would have looked at somebody who was in their last year of studies simply because then I knew they had a good array of skills that they could bring to the, using a first year student, depending on what you want them to do. I don't know. That was certainly not probably have suited us because of the work that Hugh had covered in his course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we generally
third or
find that
fourth year.
first-year students don't apply because they're still getting settled into
Yeah,
university and they don't feel that they've got the skills.
Yeah.
But you can specify if you have a particular project that you want somebody who's second year, masters in IT. You can specify exactly what it is you want, or you can be broad about that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A question here from Michelle again. Thank you, Michelle. From the time of inquiry and application, how long would it typically take to have an intern start?
Okay, so 2 weeks for the university to advertise, shortlist and provide us with the interns, and then we say to allow another 2 weeks for you to conduct interviews and select your students, so a month at the most.
Okay, and we need to be wary, I imagine, of holidays as well in terms of when staff and students are out.
Yeah, so sometimes we have that issue, but we'll usually specify that. If it's a particular time of year, over the winter break is sometimes a bit tricky. Over summer, we are better off to recruit students in around September, October, because if we wait until the end of uni, they've all gone on holidays or festivals.
Then we don't see them very much.
People do.
Our process probably took a bit longer, but that's because we were specific in making sure that Hugh had finished uni for the year. But I think I started mine in about July.
Yeah.
And, really, I wanted it to be I wanted to make sure it was all the T's were crossed and, the I's were dotted. But despite we had him starting in November, I recall meeting him in October.
Yes.
So that probably July, August, actually maybe August, September. So it was probably about a 2.5 months time that.
Sometimes it can take, particularly if you're in a regional location, sometimes it can take a bit longer. But if you're in a hurry for a student, we can get it sorted within a month.
A question here from Joe. Joe asks, is the internship program open to students who are on a visa?
Good question, Joe. We aim the program at local students. So it's generally aimed at students who are local Australian students. There are exceptions to that rule in that if you as an employer are comfortable with and understand the visa arrangements that are required, then we may consider that. The other thing to consider is that if you had a particular project that required a Mandarin speaking student, we've had a couple of those, and sometimes we will advertise that to local students only and not have success, so then we will offer to international students as well. Depending on the project.
The requirements, yes. Virginia asks, if you're able to have interns 3 per year, do you receive the full $3,000 per intern?
You do. It's a very good deal.
Let's have a look. A lot of questions here, I guess, speaking to the real nitty-gritty of the application process, but I think our general advice there would be to go online and have a look at the proposal that you need to put together.
Yes.
And I imagine as well you and Cherie are very open to take questions.
Absolutely.
Either phone or on email.
Absolutely.
About that.
So the project proposal details how you make decisions about pay rate and about award rates. Plus our WPR helpline advice line can give you support around that. Neither Cherie or I are experts in the award field, but our WPR people are, so they can help you with deciding an award based on the type of role.
Which I used. They helped out with me as well.
Right, so you called into
I called in and got specific. Like I was quite specific about what the role was, and in our case it was under the hospitality and retail award because he was working in a motel. And so we used that award and we worked out the specific pay rate.
We've been talking about, fortunately, a terrific situation and experience you have with Hugh. But Michelle writes in and says, what if you're not happy with your intern during 120 hours?
Okay.
Is there a process in place?
There is. So if you decided you didn't want to proceed any further with your intern, that's part of the reason why we check in along the way. So we'll usually check in 2 or 3 weeks in and make sure that everything's okay. And if it's not, and you decide that perhaps it's not the right fit, we will pay you a pro rata amount, and you could finish the internship up early.
Okay, right. So there's an option for you, Michelle. So I
And
guess
it
the
is
idea
in
is
part of the contract. It's in the contract as
Right.
well, in our placement agreement.
it's stipulated in there.
Yeah.
So I guess that speaks to how you go, doesn't it? Let's try it out. If it doesn't work out, then
Yeah.
there's an option there to cut it short if needs be.
Correct.
Great. A question from Joe with regard to screening candidates. Are they reference checked? Can Joe request to have candidates for an internship reference checked?
Yeah, so they're all shortlisted, reference checked through the university, and if you're, let's just say your role is something that where they specifically need to have a working with children's check,
Yeah.
you put that in your proposal and the university checks that.
A couple of questions here from Lee and Paul respectively, and a bit like the case study we've heard about. What if I have a student in mind for the role? Can I appoint them?
You can, that's a different process, but there's just some requirements you need to meet, which is providing evidence that they are attending university within our partnership.
Yep.
And what else do we need? A resume, cover letter.
That's right. That's what we did with
Yeah.
Hugh, because he was the candidate that we had elected
Yeah,
through the
Yeah.
he had to give us his a copy of his student card, and he had a resume and a cover letter, which we forwarded on as
Yeah,
part
so
of
that
the
was just so that the student is aware that they're participating as part of the
Yeah.
internship program through the chamber.
Perfect. Final word, I guess, over to you guys. Any comments to summarise your experience? How it was for you? Value of the VTIC membership, Victorian Chamber membership, all that sort of stuff. Just to wrap
It was
up.
great value. I can't say enough about the project. I just thought it was. I wish I'd found it earlier, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'd actually gone off to another workshop with the Victorian Chamber of Commerce, happened to find out about this and got fired up and thought, this is what I need. The only thing I'd probably advise is be so clear in your aim and your outcome of what you want. It's not going to help anybody if it becomes a bit wishy-washy while they're there. We were quite specific in what we wanted, so Hugh couldn't diverge from that. It was, and that's what kept the program on track and ongoing, and why I think it was so successful and what we got, because we got what we wanted. That's one thing I would definitely say.
It wasn't only sort of in terms of documenting the aims of the internship, but it's also having a one-on-one with the internship and saying, intern saying, look, this is what we actually want. This is what we want at the end. This is the final outcome. And putting a good partnership together between good relationship between the two parties. I think that's really critical. Making sure you get to where you want to go. And continue that during the whole process as well.
Don't be frightened to talk to Cherie and Carol, because I think I did a lot of emails and a lot of calls. Don't be frightened to get the support. They're there. I'll admit that was something that I was quite pleased with, is that you had the support all the way through. And because I was a bit nervous about doing something like this, because I like the idea of getting the $3,000, and I thought, what if I do something wrong? What if I don't, what if I don't get it right? If I don't get this, if I don't get what I want from the intern right, what will happen? And I didn't want that. I wanted to make sure it was successful, and you helped me enormously to make sure it did.
Here to support members, people who are interested in the internship program. Once you've written up a proposal, we won't just send it off. We'll actually have a chat with you and talk you through the next steps in the process.
And any future plans for another intern? You got another job, another project for someone to take on?
I'm going to be honest. I'm really sorry that I didn't apply for that intern again. Sort of things happened very quickly, and we didn't get that opportunity. And Hugh's now finished, and I would have liked the continuation of the data collecting, because we thought that it would be quite easy to get funding elsewhere, and as it's turned out, it's been a lot more difficult. And I wish that we had continued it on. I would have definitely, after having been through the process once and found that it wasn't as difficult as I thought, I kick myself that I didn't do it. I should have, you know, in April I should have put in my proposal and continued on. Yeah, so that's the one thing I'm, you know, sorry I didn't do.
Yeah.
But I would say to somebody, if you've done it once, then do it again. You know, it gets easier. I'm sure it'll get easier each time. Yeah, yeah.
Have the understanding.
Exactly. Yeah, for both, you know, the process, for the how to deal with an intern, and yeah, I would certainly consider doing it again. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I think we might bring it to a close there. Thanks so much, Josie and John, for coming down and being part of this.
I hope it's been of some benefit.
Oh, I think it absolutely has. And this is the first time that we've had a case study live in a webinar like this.
Oh wow.
From a member, so we really appreciate you coming in and sharing the
Another
stories
first for us, John.
And thank you, Carol, for coming down as well and sharing the program with us. Up on the screen, we have some upcoming VTIC events. 2 mixes coming up, one coming up at the beginning of September, Doubletree by Hilton, so right opposite Flinders Street Station. And then the 3rd of October, Wallace and Ed, the funky new part of the Windsor Hotel on Burke Street. So diarise those, they're free to attend, great industry networking. And of course, we should say Thursday the 22nd of November, they're not the 2nd, but RACV Victorian Tourism Awards Gala ceremony, tickets are now on sale for that. It's said to be a huge night. About 1,000 industry folk at Crown Palladium. So get that one into your calendars. And just finally, a thank you from us. If you would like to get in touch with Carol or Cherie, you can start here or pick up the phone as well and have a chat. That's always a nice place to start.
Absolutely.
Thanks again, everyone. And signing off from VTIC, improving the world one webinar at a time.
I can't even remember what I said.